Welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful, but let's be honest, often misunderstood financial tool. It was designed for one single mission: to protect your hard-earned money from that silent wealth killer we call inflation. So let's break down exactly how it works. So here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle the problem itself: inflation, the silent thief. Then we'll introduce our hero, tips. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how they work, uncover their secret weapon, take an honest look at the risks, and finally, help you figure out if these have a place in your own portfolio. All right, first up, let's talk about this silent thief. To really appreciate a solution, you first have to get a feel for the problem it was created to solve.
Let me ask you a question, just straight up. Does it ever feel like your money is shrinking? Even if the number in your bank account is the same, it just doesn't seem to go as far. Well, you're not imagining things. That feeling, that's inflation.
Think about it like this. That $100 bill in your wallet today might buy you a nice dinner out and maybe a full tank of gas. But a few years from now, that exact same $100 bill might only cover the gas. The piece of paper hasn't changed, but its power, its purchasing power, has been quietly worn away. And that's inflation in a nutshell. So what can you do? How do you fight back against an invisible force that's eating away at your savings? Well, that brings us to our inflation fighter, a solution built for this exact purpose by the U.S. government. They are called Treasury Inflation-Protected Securities, or much easier to say, TIPS. Now, these aren't just any old bonds. They're a special class of U.S. Treasury bond, which means they're backed by the full faith and credit of the government, and they are specifically engineered to keep your investment's value from being chipped away by rising prices. Okay, so how do they actually do that? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the really clever mechanics that make this all possible. The absolute key to understanding how TIPS work is something called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. You've probably heard of it. It's the official yardstick the government uses to measure inflation. It's basically a giant shopping basket of goods and services, everything from groceries to gasoline, and it tracks how their prices change over time. TIPS are tied directly to this number. And the process is beautifully simple. When the CPI goes up, which means there's inflation, the principal value of your TIPS bond gets an automatic upward adjustment to match it. Boom! Just like that. The real value, the purchasing power of your initial investment is preserved. It's a direct, powerful one-to-one link. Now, this whole mechanism has a fantastic safety net built right in, so we know your principal grows when inflation goes up. But what if the opposite happens? What if we get deflation, where prices actually fall? Well, while the principal value can adjust downward, the U.S. Treasury guarantees that at the very end, when the bond matures, you will never get back less than what you originally put in. Your initial investment is always safe. Okay, so protecting your principal is huge, but TIPS have another trick up their sleeve, a kind of secret weapon. And this is what brings us to what I call the secret of double protection. It's what really makes them special. Here's the key. Every bond pays you interest, right? That's called the coupon rate. With a TIPS bond, that rate is fixed. It's set in stone the day you buy it. But, and this is the crucial part, the actual dollar amount you get paid in interest changes. How? Because that fixed rate isn't applied to your original investment, it's applied to your new inflation-adjusted principal. Let's make this super simple with an example. Say you buy a $1,000 TIPS bond, and it has a 1% coupon rate. If there were zero inflation in the world, you'd get $10 in interest for the year. Easy, right? But now, let's say inflation runs at 3%. Well, first, your principal gets adjusted up to $1,030. And now your 1% coupon rate gets applied to that new, higher number. So your interest payment isn't $10 anymore, it's $10.30. See what happened there? Your interest payment itself just got a raise to keep up with inflation. And that is the brilliant magic of TIPS. It's a double whammy of protection. Your principal value is shielded from inflation, and the interest payments you receive are also shielded from inflation. Both pieces of your investment are working together to keep your purchasing power whole. Now, this all sounds amazing, maybe even a little too good to be true. And as smart investors, we know that there's no such thing as a risk-free investment. So to get the full picture, we have to talk about the potential downsides. So what are the trade-offs? Well, first, like pretty much any bond, if overall interest rates go up in the market, the price of your existing bond might go down. More specifically for TIPS, if real interest rates, that's the rate after inflation, go up, newer bonds will look more attractive, which can lower the market price of yours. And then there's this unique tax issue. That increase in your principal value each year, it can be counted as taxable income for that year, even though you don't actually get that cash until the bond matures. It's famously called phantom income.
So what do you do about that phantom income problem? Well, here's a big pro tip. One of the most common strategies is to hold your tips inside a tax-deferred account, like an IRA or a 401k. That way, you can potentially avoid paying taxes on those principal adjustments year after year.
Okay, let's bring this all home. We've covered the good, the bad, and the mechanics. Now we get to the most important question of all. Are tips right for you? Let's try and figure out who benefits the most from having these in their corner. You know, tips tend to be a really fantastic fit for investors who are in it for the long haul. If your primary goal is less about hitting a home run and more about making sure the money you have keeps its value over time, if you're focused on preserving your purchasing power and adding a steady, defensive asset to your portfolio, then tips could be a really, really valuable tool for you.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought. Take a minute to think about your own financial goals, your own portfolio. After everything we've talked about today, what role could a tool that was designed from the ground up to be a shield against inflation play for you?